Hey everyone, welcome to day 2 of the second half of the Route 66 adventure from Midpoint to Los Angeles or Santa Monica. Here I sit having my morning coffee. I am at Tucumcari, New Mexico right now and stayed overnight at the Flying J rest stop, which has been awesome. It's really bright, so window blockers are probably a good idea, but otherwise it was a peaceful night, really nice place to stay. It's free boondock camping. The trucks park on one side of the Denny's that's here, and then on the other side is where they put the RVs and the cars or whatever. The only requirement is you got to be self-contained, and people do it in cars actually. They just sleep in their cars. I think they can go inside and use the bathroom. Today I want to show you what I'm using as guidebooks. There's 2 books that I'm using. This one is from Jerry McClellan, and this is Easy 66 Guide. This is something like the 4th edition. He keeps redoing it. This is a nice binder format, and it's a horizontal orientation, and you can read about the route, the variations. So sometimes the route's kind of hard to find because 66, sometimes it's buried, sometimes it exists, sometimes it doesn't exist. And so this guy really helps you find your way and points out some attractions on the way. This one is strictly about attractions. This one's written by a fellow named Mark Watson. It has 202 amazing places to stop. For the second half, for me, there's 101. And it just points out the major attractions that you want to see. And I find it to be really good and useful. It keeps you from missing some of the really cool stuff. The Cadillac Ranch that I did yesterday is on there. The Midpoint Cafe is on there. One of the things in Tucumcari that I'm going to miss, unfortunately, and it points out in here, is that there's a museum I wanted to go to, but unfortunately it's only open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and I arrived here after 2 p.m. yesterday, and I want to leave well before 10 a.m. so I'm going to miss that. But think about that in your planning. These guides are great. They're recommended. There are many other guides that you can find and use, so just choose one that works for you. Otherwise, I definitely recommend these 2. So this morning I'm just going to get on the road, try to drive through Tucumcari while it's still dark, maybe see if the neon's on in the morning, and then we're going to get on the road. And I have no idea where I'm going to end up today, but we'll find out. Stay tuned. So I got on the road pre-dawn, left the Flying J and headed into town to see if the neon lights were still turned on. And I drove by Loretta's and it was glowing pretty nicely. But unfortunately, the Blue Swallow, which is one of the best, had the lights turned off. And that's a 1957 Hudson, for those of you who are wondering. There's some old Conoco gas pumps that are lit up, no big deal. And this is the museum sign, which is kind of blurry, sorry, that I intended to go to, but of course it was closed. An old Edsel on the way. And then I headed out on the frontage road, which was Route 66. And what happened next was totally unexpected. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but let me just explain quickly. A fellow in North Carolina by the name of Jeremy Smith, with a J.A., was driving a stolen BMW down I-40 early in the morning. He got a flat tire and he was trying to flag down motorists and nobody stopped, but somehow the cops got informed and Officer Justin Hale was dispatched to the scene. As it turns out, the BMW was stolen from a woman who was found dead later, and it was assumed that Jeremy Smith was responsible for the murder. A side note here, this is where Route 66 passes under I-40 in this cool old narrow tunnel. But anyway, Officer Hale pulled up to the scene. Jeremy Smith walked up to his passenger side. They discussed what they might do. Officer Hale offered him a ride into town, and for no reason, Jeremy Smith pulled out a weapon and shot Officer Hale. And then he walked around to the driver's side and shot him again, pushed him aside in the seat, and drove off at a high speed on the frontage road of I-40. During that escape, Jeremy Smith dumped Officer Hale's body on the road and continued and eventually crashed the patrol car. I rolled up to a roadblock and 2 cops jumped out of their cars, brandishing weapons, bulletproof vests, yelling at the top of their lungs, "Get out of the car!" And I looked over to my left and saw the patrol car, and I knew that something very serious was wrong. So of course I complied. There's something in the law called exigent circumstances. And the way it works is this: if an officer feels threatened, they don't have to have a search warrant to ask you out of your vehicle or search the vehicle. And of course, under the circumstances, I allowed them to do whatever they wanted. Now, I posted a couple of videos and I got deeply criticized by some of the viewers who'd been obviously watching too many YouTube videos and were extremely uninformed and ignorant. I was really angered by this, and I posted a couple of videos on the matter. So if you want to check those, I'll put the links in the description. But anyway, this is not the place for that, so I'll just move on. But here you can see the officer's car that was crashed by the suspect. He was loose in the area, and here's a photo of the cops actually walking away from my car after the search had been done, and they were satisfied that there was nothing to be seen in my vehicle. So they allowed me to move on, but it was clear that the suspect was on the loose in the area and obviously very dangerous, so I was glad that I wasn't apprehended by him. The upshot is that Jeremy Smith was captured a few days later after shots were fired, and Mr. Smith was injured but will survive. Unfortunately, Officer Hale did not survive. My condolences go out to his family and friends. So I moved on from the scene and went on to my next adventure, but it wasn't until a few hours later that I discovered what had happened, and the details slowly flowed in over the next couple of days.
Take care, guys.
Next stop is the famous Route 66 Auto Museum. It is located in Santa Rosa, which was first settled in 1865, and this area was originally named Agua Negra Chiquita, which means little black water. The name was changed in 1890 to Santa Rosa, referring to a chapel that city founder Don Celso Baca built and named after both his mother Rosa and Saint Rose of Lima. The Route 66 Auto Museum was opened for tourists on August 15, 2000, and the museum has over 30 privately owned cars on display, including classic, vintage, chrome, street rods, plus Route 66 memorabilia. They claim to be the most famous Route 66 car museum. Some of the classic cars are even on consignment and available for purchase. Now, there's too many cars to talk about and cover, so I'm just going to show you quickly a bunch of pictures without too much details, and then we have to move on. This is the Blue Hole, also in Santa Rosa. I didn't find it that interesting, but perhaps if it was a hot day and I needed to swim, it would have been different. When you leave Santa Rosa, you got to make a decision. The pre-1937 route went north and goes through Santa Fe, whereas the newer route, post-1937, goes directly to Albuquerque. And of course, I decided to take the longer route. It does take more time, but it does take you through some more interesting terrain. Okay, this is obviously the old town. It's supposed to be kind of a charming old place. It is said that the Route 66 travelers would take the detour to Las Vegas sometimes. It's about 5 miles one way off of the Route 66 path. But if they needed supplies or food or car repairs or whatever, they would take the detour and come here. Okay, this is definitely the plaza. Looks like kind of a town square in the center here, a town circular. Oh, there's a nice old building dead ahead. Lift the camera, I'm going to widen it a little bit so you can see that building. Yeah, there we go. Look at the bank. The bank is dead ahead, that old building. This actually is pretty cool. Lots of old buildings. I'll look it up and see how old this town is. Obviously it looks like a 1800s affair. Oh, there's the old theater on the right, looks closed down. Okay, we're in the town of Las Vegas now, and you can see they've got an old Santa Fe caboose there, and if you look closely at the door there, you can see they've got a live burro hanging out there. See, there's a pretty cool church there on the right. It's a Methodist church. That kind of wraps up the Las Vegas visit, passing the Palomino Hotel. There's a park with an old train. Pretty cool. All right, I'm on Highway 25. As you can see, I'm getting close to Santa Fe. It's about 8 miles. And this is actually a beautiful drive. There's a couple things to see along the way. One of the things I kind of wanted to do, but the timing wasn't right, is to go to a place called Pecos, and there's a San Miguel mission there. It looks really nice. So that's a good side trip if you can do it. I believe this is the old town Santa Fe. And I'm just gonna probably drive through it. I don't have time to get out and walk around, but it looks really interesting. Lots of shops, lots of gifts. New Mexico lore. If you have the time, a walking tour of the downtown area of Santa Fe is definitely recommended, and there are great accommodations there if you choose to stay overnight. Just a warning, it's not cheap. I didn't have time to walk around, unfortunately, so I had to drive around, which wasn't the best, but it had to suffice. This is the old Spanish Trail. Ooh, look at this. It's a New Mexico Museum of Art. A beautiful view of the mountains between Santa Fe and Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is downtown Albuquerque. Friday at 6 o'clock, so all the hustle bustle from the daytime is over, I guess. It's pretty quiet. Okay, so after a long and confusing day of exploring, we end up in Albuquerque, and then it's time to find a place to bed down, and I do locate in Flying J that's just outside of town. So I take the long boulevard out towards I-40 and then backtrack just a little bit to get to the Flying J where I spend the night. Once I get to I-40, I backtrack a little bit to get to my overnight location, and you can see the mountains in the distance. It's quite beautiful. And so I have a peaceful night there, and then in the morning I head back down into Albuquerque to check out a few more things, and then I get on my way. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, thanks for watching.